When it comes to India's Air Chief Marshal, AP Singh, who has raised concerns over delays when it comes to major defence procurement projects. Many times he says contracts are signed, but those systems never really come in, and timelines are a big issue. Let's listen in to the Air Marshal.
Timelines is a big issue. That is where that Vachan part comes in. So once a timeline is given, not a single project that I can think of has been completed on time. So this is something where we have to look at. Why should we promise something which cannot be achieved? While signing the contract itself, some of the times we are sure that it is not going to come up. But we just sign the contract. Uske baad dekhenge kya karna. Obviously then the process gets vitiated. This Op Sindoor, as it is, like it was told by Chief of Naval Staff, that character of war is changing. Every day we are finding new technologies coming in. Technology is coming in a big way in our warfare now. And Op Sindoor has again given us clear idea of where we are headed and what we need in future. So a lot of work needs to be done in realigning our own thought processes also, which is already going on. In future also we will be able to deliver the goods as a nation, and we will be able to achieve our objectives.
And to know more on this, we have Vishnu Som and Shiv Arur joining us. Vishnu, over to you first. The Air Chief Marshal just dropped a bombshell saying that weapons don't come on time. In fact, he's gone on to say there's not a single project that's been completed on time. How are these remarks how would they be putting the defence arms industry on notice?
Well, the defence arms industry is absolutely on notice, and by that it's primarily Hindustan Aeronautics, the larger DRDO setup, as it were. The problem in many cases, unfortunately, is not about the engineering or the science or the ability to get ahead with technology. It is the process of signing contracts, and it is certainly the process of manufacturing at the scale that the armed forces require. What the Air Force Chief has today said, and I would suggest that these are some of his most hard-hitting words. This is the man who doesn't waste anyone's time. He says what he has to say, is absolutely clear. When he said that there is not a single weapon system that he can remember which has actually come in on time, he was referring to domestic industry. Let's look at the Tejas Mark 1A fighter. Many more were expected to be in service. So far, that's the numbers that we want are not there. The Tejas Mark 2, the prototype is still not rolled out at a time when China is supposed to be inducting a stealth fighter, perhaps within this year or perhaps early next year. We don't even have a single fifth generation platform. Our ARMA, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, is expected to be prototyped a couple of years down the road. By the time it enters Indian Air Force service, it will be 2035 onwards. So, you're looking at a lead time of at least 10 years from there. That is a scenario which is unacceptable for this Air Force Chief, which is why when he says that, look at what the learning experiences of the message from Op Sindoor has been. We are learning all the time. We need to change all the time. And then he's linked that need for change to the fact that we don't even get weapons on time.
That's right. Let's also go across to Shiv. Well, the Indian Air Force Chief says, why do we even, make these promises in the first place if we can't achieve these promises? And that really is the question here.
This is a huge and very, very serious glare on domestic industry, particularly, as Vishnu correctly pointed out, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the defense public sector, defense manufacturers, the DRDO ecosystem at large. And remember, this is the Air Chief Marshal AP Singh, saying this just over 3 weeks after historic Indian Air Force-led strikes inside Pakistan. So you have an Air Force Chief, who doesn't play around, doesn't waste time, says it like it is, plays it on the line, speaks these words in front of his boss, the Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, and pretty much is pointing a finger directly at the serious operational bottlenecks posed by delayed weapons deliveries for a country that has just demonstrated is in wartime almost on a constant basis. It doesn't get bigger than this, really. And Air Chief Marshal AP Singh has consistently demonstrated that this is not a flash in the pan issue that he's raising. Just after taking over as chief, he had talked about how Make in India is very, very important, but the Air Force cannot be held hostage if there are delays. Then there was that famous moment where a video of him went viral where he said he's got no confidence in Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. That was in February this year. And now, just a few weeks after Operation Sindoor, where the Air Force is the toast of the town, the toast of the entire world for the kind of attacks that it imposed on Pakistan, bringing it to its knees, paralyzing its entire air defense structure, to point out in front of the country's biggest industry body, the Confederation of Indian Industry, many of whom, represent defense industry themselves, to say that we sign contracts but things don't come on time. Of course, he was referring to HAL and others, is perhaps the biggest red flag and operational alarm that the Air Chief has ever sounded.
Shiv, one of the key points that the Air Chief Marshal mentioned, and we haven't played out that soundbite here, but I heard it a little while back, and he was talking about ARMA, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, India's stealth fighter. What he said that when it does come online, right, into the Indian Air Force, it has to be at the relevant generation, right? Now that's important because we keep talking about fourth generation aircraft.
Yeah.
Tejas is fourth generation, right? The J-20, which China operates, the stealth fighter, is a fifth generation platform. The Rafale is about 4.5 generations. The Chinese are already fifth generation plus. Some call it sixth generation. They've got 2 flying prototypes. India has not even prototyped a single fifth generation aircraft, in other words, a stealth aircraft. So what the Air Chief's message over there is absolutely critical. Look, it's not enough to just talk about ARMA. It's not just enough to talk about stealth. We need a plane that works and is relevant at the time that it is deployed. And nobody is going to say it as directly as him, but let's face it, even when the Tejas Mark II comes on the table, great technology, great fourth generation aircraft, a huge engineering effort to build it, it will be behind contemporary technology. We are building a fourth generation aircraft, operationalizing it right now, compared to a sixth generation platform, then there are certain things you are doing or accepting which otherwise you wouldn't want to. So when he's talking about the ARMA and the future as well, he says when that comes online, it needs to be relevant at the time it enters service.
He couldn't have put it better, Vishnu, and the Air Chief, of course, knows exactly what he's talking about, when he decries the fact that the AMCA, when it comes, perhaps a decade from now or more, may either not be of the generation that will be required at that time. 10 years is an absolute eternity when it comes to defense technology. In 10 years from now, who is to say that piloted fighter aircraft will even exist? We may be moving into a kind of battle space where only uncrewed or unmanned aircraft are actually in the mix whenever combat actually takes place. So the comparison that one is often tempted to do, for us as journalists, Vishnu, you and me, is the serious daily life and death sort of stuff that the Air Chief has to deal with, especially since Operation Sindoor has just taken place, giving the entire world proof that India and Pakistan can go to war, or indeed India and China can go to war at any time. The stealth aircraft paradigm that he mentioned is hugely crucial because this was largely an aerial delivered set of strikes against Pakistan. There are all these questions over whether if India had stealth fighters, this could have been a very, very different sort of aerial battle. The Chinese are going to supply J-35 fighters to the Pakistanis very soon, giving Pakistan stealth fighters even before India actually acquires them. China has 2 fifth generation fighters, 2 so-called 6th generation stealth fighters that are in flight test and prototype phase, etc. The balance of air power is shifting very, very rapidly, and that's a big concern. It's one thing for us to talk about it here. For the Air Chief, it basically means sleepless nights in wartime.
And he was also, Shiv, talking about the changing nature of warfare. He used the word war, he would use the word war in the context of warfare generally, but I think in his mind what has taken place, and I think we need to be clear about the use of that word as well. I don't think we should squirm from using the word. I do believe that what we've seen in terms of Operation Sindoor, even if it was 4 or 5 days, was a war. It was a limited war. Never has India struck Pakistan as far, as deep since the 1971 war. The army had tanks involved. Of course, they were on our side of the line of control. The navy was more, everybody was involved. So let's think of this as a limited war, but it was a war. And his point over here is this, that the nature of warfare is changing. How is it changing? What have we seen in the last couple of weeks? Drone warfare is upon us. You spoke about man-unmanned. You spoke about, manned warfare perhaps changing. But then there is, of course, the entire concept of manned-unmanned teaming. right? That's something India is working on, where you've got a fighter aircraft and an unmanned loyal wingman, which is a drone. That's something India is trying to develop. Will those contracts happen fast? Will the technology be developed? The time for India to languish on signing contracts, it's gone, Shiv. I've been around doing this for 30 years. When I started journalism, we were speaking about MRCA. That became MMRCA. That got scrapped. We got talking to the French. We wanted 200 aircraft. We ultimately ended up getting only 36. 30 years have passed. And the Indian Air Force still hasn't got the 114 that they want. Yeah. That too of a platform, which may be an outstanding platform, but that's current technology. What about the future? The lead time for acquisitions is a decade. And that's true anywhere in the world. It's not necessarily that we are building planes slower than the others. We're just ordering them much slower and manufacturing them even slower yet. Therefore, when the Air Chief today says and tells domestic industry, thank you very much, you're coming on board, we are welcome, but please stick to your promises, deliver on time. This is the message which will go far and wide.
That's, there's an element of the air chief striking while the iron is hot. There is all this heat over Operation Sindoor. The world's eyes are on Indian military action. The Indian government, the Indian system, is very energized right now to the needs of the armed forces. And as Vishnu, you and I have reported for decades, defense deals don't happen on a dime. They take a very, very long time. India, I think, currently still holds the world record for the longest lead time for the acquisition, if even basic things like trainer aircraft. And therefore the air chief comes from, not from a sort of temperamental place. This is a war-fighting chief who has just finished conducting India's most landmark milestone non-war operations in our enemy neighbor, and is basically using this platform to keep the spotlight on his demands. The system is malleable right now because it is in war mode, and therefore to highlight these issues, these bottlenecks, the deadbeat nature of the domestic state-owned defense industry ecosystem is something that he seems to want to connect while the country's attention and gaze is on it. And I think he's very, very right to do so.